A 67-year-old man steps into a busy restaurant on a Tuesday afternoon. Within moments of walking through the door, two women, seated at separate tables, instinctively glance up from their conversations to look at him. Not because he was wearing something flashy, not because he had the build of a 30-year-old, not even because he said a single word. It happened because of something far more subtle, something deeply wired into female psychology that most men over 60 have no idea they're either projecting or completely neglecting. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what those things are. My name is Dr. Julia Rhodes. I am a men's sex therapist with over a decade of experience working with different couples and helping men reclaim their sexual health, confidence, and strength. Over the years, I have sat across from hundreds of men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, who came into my office convinced that their best years were behind them, that attraction was a young man's game, that the window had closed. I am here to tell you today, with complete clinical certainty, that they were wrong. And so are you, if you believe that. If what I just said resonates with you, if you've ever felt like you're slowly disappearing from the room, then I need you to stay with me through this entire video. Because what I'm about to reveal changes everything. Subscribe to this channel right now and hit that notification bell, because the information I share here is not what you'll find in any mainstream magazine or generic dating advice column. This is backed by real clinical experience, real research, and real results. Let's get into it. Here is something that might genuinely surprise you. One of the most extensively published voices in human desire and relationships, Esther Perel, has spent decades exploring what drives attraction in mature adults. Her findings point to something that challenges almost everything popular culture tells men about aging. She's observed that female attraction in mature relationships tends to become more layered, more specific, and in many ways more powerful than the surface-level attraction patterns of early adulthood. Women who are past their 30s are not scanning the room for the same things a 22-year-old is looking for. Most men believe that getting older means becoming invisible to women. They assume the window of attraction has a hard expiration date. They've convinced themselves that physical appeal belongs only to men with chiseled physiques, thick hair, and tight jawlines. This belief is not just inaccurate, it is genuinely costing them real connections that are completely within their reach. A study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that women's attraction patterns evolve significantly as they mature. While younger women tend to prioritize conventional attractiveness markers, women over 35 increasingly respond to what researchers describe as character indicators, physical signals that communicate something deeper about a man's emotional availability, competence, and vitality. And here is where things get fascinating. These character indicators show up in body parts men completely ignore, parts they've stopped thinking about, parts they've never once considered as tools of attraction. The 5 body parts I'm about to walk you through are the exact zones where women's subconscious assessments happen the fastest. And the 4th one on this list, it's the feature most men have entirely given up maintaining, yet it consistently ranks among the top things women notice and evaluate. The turnaround available to you once you understand it is almost unfairly powerful. Let's break this down. Number 1, the hands. This is the body part women register first, and they return to it throughout every interaction. Hands are in a near constant state of unconscious observation. Even when a woman isn't deliberately looking, her brain is taking notes. Esther Perel has described hands as one of the primary canvases of intimacy between two people. She notes that a man's hands reveal how he moves through the world, how carefully or carelessly he handles things, and women unconsciously extend that reading to how he might handle a person. Here's the specific breakdown of what is actually being scanned. First, grooming. Not salon polished, not manicured like an influencer, simply maintained. Clean nails, trimmed to an appropriate length, free of visible grime. This sounds almost embarrassingly basic, yet the number of otherwise impressive men who completely neglect their hands is staggering. A survey conducted by a major men's grooming brand revealed that 68% of women reported being immediately put off by poorly maintained hands on a first impression, before the man had said a single word. Second, the quality of hand movement. Do the hands move with calm intention, or do they fidget and retreat? Are gestures used confidently during conversation, or do the hands disappear into pockets the moment there's social pressure? The way a man moves his hands is a live broadcast of his internal emotional state, and women read that broadcast fluently. Third, and this one is particularly meaningful for men over 60, women are drawn to hands that carry evidence of use. A degree of weathering, the quiet testimony of hands that have built things, repaired things, crafted things. There's a reason the phrase, good with his hands, has always carried an undercurrent of attraction. It communicates capability that extends far beyond the physical. A woman I worked with in therapy described the moment she became attracted to a man she'd known casually for months. She said it happened when she noticed his hands at a dinner gathering. Calm when resting on the table, expressive when he spoke about a woodworking project he was building for his grandchildren. She said those hands told her more about who he was than anything he had said in 6 months of casual acquaintance. The actionable step here is almost embarrassingly simple. Basic moisturizer to address excessive dryness, consistent nail maintenance, and, most importantly, awareness of how your hands move. Slow, deliberate gestures communicate confidence. Rapid, anxious movements signal internal noise, regardless of what the words coming out of your mouth are saying. Number 2, the forearms. I know, you weren't expecting this one. Forearms of all the body parts? Yes, and the research behind why is significant. Across multiple studies asking women to rank attractive physical features in men, forearms consistently landed far higher than most men would ever guess, often above the chest, above the abdomen, and sometimes challenging even facial features for priority. For men over 60, this matters enormously. Here is why forearms carry such disproportionate weight in attraction. They are one of the only body parts routinely visible in ordinary, fully clothed social situations. A chest is hidden beneath a shirt. Arms may be covered by sleeves. But forearms appear the moment a man rolls up his cuffs to do something, and that act of rolling up the sleeves is itself its own form of quiet signal. Esther Perel has discussed what she calls micro-exposures in attraction, the small, unintentional revelations of the body that occur in everyday moments and trigger involuntary interest. A forearm revealed while reaching across a table, or while gesturing during a conversation. That is exactly the kind of micro-exposure she means. It's intimate without being deliberate. It communicates something without announcing it. The biology is direct. Forearms signal physical capability. The musculature there is functional muscle, built for gripping, lifting, and controlling. They communicate that this man can handle the physical reality of life. A female client of mine once described a 62-year-old contractor she'd hired to renovate her home. Ordinary by most visual standards, she said. Average height, unremarkable face, full head of gray hair. But when he pushed up his sleeves to get to work, something shifted in the room. His forearms were defined and deliberate looking. She told me she laughed at herself afterward. She hadn't known forearms were something she noticed until she couldn't stop noticing his. For men over 60, this is a genuine advantage. Years of actual physical use build a quality of definition that gym training alone cannot replicate. The keys are maintaining adequate muscle mass through basic regular activity, keeping skin reasonably hydrated, and, this one is crucial, actually showing them. Men who reflexively keep long sleeves on year-round are concealing one of their most potent assets. Number 3, the eyes and what surrounds them. This is where we move beyond the purely physical into something more layered and more powerful. Eyes are obviously important. That's not the revelation. The revelation is in what women over 35 are actually scanning for, and it has almost nothing to do with eye color or shape. Esther Perel writes about what she calls the gaze of presence, the quality in someone's eyes that communicates whether they are truly in a moment or mentally somewhere else entirely. She notes that this quality becomes increasingly readable as both people in an interaction mature. The older you are, the more visible your presence or your absence becomes in your eyes. For men over 60, the eyes carry a history. The lines surrounding them, what people call crow's feet, are not the liability most men assume. Research out of Western University in Canada found that people with pronounced smile lines were consistently rated as more genuine, warmer, and more trustworthy than those without. That is the record of a life lived with expression. A face that has laughed, squinted into sunlight, reacted to things that mattered. That reads as deeply attractive when it accompanies engaged, present eye contact. What women are reading in the eyes comes down to 3 things. The quality of focus. Does he look at her like she's worth looking at, or is he scanning the room? The expressiveness, meaning do his eyes change and shift with the conversation? Do they light up? Do they soften? Or are they flat and absent? And third, basic health signals, the clarity of the whites, appropriate moisture, alertness. These are processed unconsciously as vitality markers. A patient of mine described the moment she knew she was genuinely interested in a man she'd met at 58. He was 63. She told me the first thing she noticed wasn't his face overall, it was his eyes, and specifically how they behaved. When she spoke, he looked at her like what she was saying was actually important. She felt seen. She felt worth something. And all of that feeling was produced entirely by the direction and quality of his gaze. I've heard versions of that story dozens of times in my practice. The practical application is both physical and behavioral. Adequate sleep, hydration, and any necessary medical attention for eye health. But the behavior is what matters more. Practice genuine presence. Put the phone away. Quiet the internal chatter. Actually be in the room. That quality of attention is trainable, and it shows up first in the eyes. Number 4. The shoulders and overall posture. This is the one I mentioned earlier, the feature men over 60 have largely surrendered caring about, yet it sits under near constant unconscious evaluation by women in every social setting. Posture, the set of the shoulders, the way a man occupies space as he moves through the world. Let me be direct with you, because this matters. Posture is one of the single fastest mechanisms by which women sort men into categories: confident or defeated, vital or diminishing, worth engaging with or best left alone. These judgments form in under 2 seconds, and they are based almost entirely on how a man holds and moves his body. Esther Perel has written about posture as a core element of what she calls erotic presence, the physical communication of vitality and engagement with life. She notes that desire responds to energy, and energy is expressed through how the body claims space. A man can be conventionally good-looking, but carry himself in a way that completely neutralizes any attraction. Conversely, a man with entirely ordinary features can become genuinely compelling through the way he inhabits a room. The research behind this is striking. A study published in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin found that expansive, upright postures produced a significantly greater increase in perceived attractiveness than differences in clothing, grooming habits, or even facial symmetry. People consistently rated individuals with open, upright postures as more attractive, more confident, and more desirable as partners, regardless of other physical variables. For men over 60, posture typically suffers from decades of desk work, sedentary habits, and the quiet cultural message that it no longer matters at this stage of life. But here's the clinical truth I share with my patients. It matters more now than it ever did before. Because at 60, posture becomes a visible daily declaration. It signals either quiet surrender to the aging process or continued active engagement with life. Women read that declaration immediately. Rolled forward shoulders say, "I am withdrawing." Shoulders pulled back and open say, "I am still here, fully." One of my patients described attending a class reunion in his early 60s. He observed 2 men from his graduating class, same age, similar physical builds, walk into the same event within minutes of each other. One shuffled in with rounded shoulders and a downward gaze. The other walked in with shoulders back, chin level, unhurried. She told me the second man looked 15 to 20 years younger, not because of his face or his body, but entirely because of how he moved. The immediate change you can make right now costs nothing. Become aware of your shoulder position and consciously adjust it throughout the day. The longer-term work involves basic strengthening of the upper back and core muscles that support upright posture. The return on investment is, without exaggeration, greater than almost any other single physical adjustment a man over 60 can make. Number 5, the mouth and the way it moves. This final one brings everything together, and it may be the most underestimated of all. This is not simply about having a great smile, though the smile is certainly part of it. This is about the full picture: lips, teeth, and most critically, the way the mouth moves during speech and expression. Esther Perel has spoken about the mouth as central to both communication and attraction, describing how women frequently find themselves evaluating a man's mouth during conversation, not just processing his words, but registering how those words are formed. The mouth, she notes, becomes an unconscious preview of intimacy in ways most men never pause to consider. 3 things are being observed. First, dental health and maintenance. Not Hollywood perfect teeth. In fact, overly artificial perfection can read as unsettling. What matters is basic, ongoing care. Clean teeth, controlled breath, the absence of obvious neglect. A survey by the American Dental Association found that 73% of women listed teeth among the first features they notice, and for women evaluating men over 50, that number rose. Second, the authenticity of the smile. Does it arrive naturally? Does it reach the eyes, or does it stay confined to the lower half of the face in a way that reads as performance? Genuine smiles are among the most universally compelling human expressions, and women, particularly women with emotional experience, are exceptionally good at detecting the difference between a real smile and a practiced one. Third, the movement and deliberateness of the mouth during speech. Does he speak with clarity and intention? Are there thoughtful pauses that signal he is actually processing what's being said, rather than simply waiting for his next line? Or is there rushing, mumbling, a kind of verbal anxiety that signals underlying insecurity? A speech-language pathologist I've consulted with explained that women frequently process male speech through both auditory and visual channels simultaneously. They are watching the mouth form words as much as they are listening to the words themselves. This is part of why in-person conversations feel categorically more connecting than phone calls. For older men, the mouth can carry age in ways that are actually compelling. Lines around the lips from decades of expression, small asymmetries that give a face character. These do not read as decline, they read as depth. A female patient described falling for her current partner specifically because of the way his mouth moved when he spoke. Measured, deliberate, real pauses, and then a smile that came slowly, like it had earned its way to the surface rather than being deployed for effect. She told me she trusted that mouth before she made any conscious decision to trust the man behind it. The practical steps are clear. Prioritize dental maintenance. This becomes more important with age, not less. But beyond hygiene, invest in the behavioral dimension. Speak with deliberate clarity. Let genuine emotion show in your expression, rather than suppressing it for the sake of appearing composed. Allow your face to be inhabited. So there you have it. 5 physical features that women unconsciously scan, process, and respond to when they encounter a man over 60. Hands that communicate competence and care through their grooming and their movement. Forearms that signal physical capability through visible, earned definition. Eyes that radiate presence and emotional availability. Shoulders and posture that project continued vitality and an undiminished engagement with life. And a mouth that previews both health and the depth of a man's inner world. None of this requires a gym membership, an expensive skincare regimen, or any kind of dramatic reinvention. What it requires is attention, awareness. The recognition that attraction is not a game with an age limit. It simply redirects its focus as we mature. The work I've done with clients over more than a decade has shown me again and again that the men who remain compelling at 60, 65, even 70, they're not the ones who froze in time or fought hardest against the clock. They're the ones who stayed present, who stayed engaged, who continued to inhabit their bodies and their lives with intention. All 5 of these body parts share something in common. They are all expressions of how a man engages with the world. Hands that build, forearms that work, eyes that see, shoulders that face forward, a mouth that speaks with meaning. These aren't passive features sitting there waiting to be admired. They are live signals of how you are choosing to live. And women are reading those signals constantly, whether either of you is aware of it or not. For men over 60, that story can be one of continued fire or slow retreat. The choice shows up in these 5 places, every single day. Now, if this video shifted something in you, if it gave you a new lens through which to see your own presence and physicality, then I want you to do 3 things right now. First, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I release clinical insights, real client breakthroughs, and practical guidance for men who refuse to accept that their best chapters are behind them. Second, drop a comment below. Tell me which of these 5 areas you're going to work on first. I read every single one. Your honesty might be exactly what someone else in this community needs to hear. And third, watch the video appearing on your screen right now, How to Touch Her in a Way That Creates Desire. Because everything we've covered today is about what she sees when she looks at you. But attraction doesn't live only in the eyes. It lives in the body, in contact, in the specific mechanics of how 2 people physically connect. That video breaks down the neurological and psychological triggers of touch that create genuine desire in women, including why most men unknowingly use physical contact in ways that reduce attraction rather than build it, and exactly what to do instead. I'm Dr. Julia Rhodes. I've spent over a decade helping men rebuild their confidence, their sexual health, and their relationships from the inside out. And I will tell you this with everything I know professionally. It is not too late. It has never been too late. The men who believe that are the ones who stop. Don't stop. See you in the next video.